Well, hello and welcome to our Subconscious Speaks. My name is Don Robert, and together with my amazing, talented, award-winning bestie, Tina,
Tina Orlando.
and together we are,
Tina Orlando.
and Dawn. It's our little joke, Joe. The Tony Orlando and Dawn play.
Love it.
That's our little joke. So great to be here today with you all. I'm really excited. We've got a special guest. It's the first of many guests that we plan on bringing into the show. And our special guest today is Joe Kinslow, who, interesting enough, he and I had these parallel lives. I was in corporate America on the security side, physical electronic security side for 20 years, major
Mm.
corporations. And Joe has spent 25 years in the cybersecurity world, working with
Yeah.
large corporations. And our paths crossed in a Zoom
Yeah.
room at HMI.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Joe just kind of stood out to me. I love his presence. I love his background, that light, like everything about Joe just screams one-upmanship. And so, when you notice, I think how George decides who to bring into his fold, right? He's just impressive. So I'm really excited to kind of have a chat with Joe and see, how the heck do you go from cybersecurity to hypnosis?
Yeah.
So let's start there, Joe. What's that pivot look like from
Sure. Sure.
cybersecurity to hypno?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and very nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you both. And so, yeah, I mean, my pivot. Let's see. You know, a few years ago, actually, I was struggling. I have built and managed cybersecurity programs for Fortune 100 companies for 25 years, and I was part of the graduating class of SUNY Farmingdale with, I believe, the United States' first 4-year bachelor degree in information security. And at that time, it certainly wasn't called cybersecurity, right?
Right.
So this was in the early 2000s, 2000 and 2000 itself, and the degree program was, information security. And the biggest risk that a company had at that point was somebody who's going to jump into a trash dumpster, right, and steal a lot of records. So it
Mm,
wasn't this concept that the world was about to get very, very connected, right?
mm,
And it was with that connection, that 24/7 electronic connection, that the concept of the need to protect one's intellectual property from those who would do you harm, and this is what gave rise to what we now know as cybersecurity today. And so I did that for 2.5 decades, and at one point, I was speaking rather regularly in Manhattan. And really, I mean, I knew my craft, right? There was no doubt that I knew my craft. But increasingly, I felt this disillusionment, this disconnect,
mm.
and really was struggling. Like, who am I if I'm not this person who has very carefully built this career
Right.
based on a high level of academic achievement and accolades in the field. And so, and then to make matters sort of to further compound matters, I had a pretty profound loss about 9 months ago, where I lost my partner of 28 years. And so, you can imagine that losing anyone that you love 28 years later, not to mention the person that perhaps you lived life for, it begs the question, who am I? And, what do I want to do for the remainder of my life?
What's this
And
next chapter
I
look
was
like?
lying in bed one morning, and literally the word hypnotherapy came to my mind. And as it
Wow.
turns out, it didn't just come out of the blue. So in my early 20s, I'd had a very profound experience, a really transformative experience with hypnotherapy. Now, this would have been in the mid 80s. And of
Oh,
course, there was no internet then. You
wow.
know, it was like, you walk yourself to a library, you check out a book, and if you're lucky, you'll get some good intel. And so somewhere along the way, I made contact with a clinical hypnotherapist. I remember that. I remember that distinction very clearly because of the acronym used, after her name,
Hmm.
and so at the very young age of 21. So my issue was I had just taken up smoking 2 years prior, and so 2 years into it, you might think, how deep could this addiction be? Well, for me, it was as deep as it gets. And I was convinced that I would not be able to, separate myself from this compulsion
Hmm.
under my own power. And so I just researched hypnotherapy, found a clinically trained hypnotherapist, worked collaboratively with her to build a beautiful script. And 3 sessions later, it's been 35 years. I haven't had a cigarette since. And so that's a little bit of a long story to say, this is my pivot. This is what brought me to a more heart-shaped or a heart-centered focus,
Mm.
and which is eventually what brought me to this podcast. So, yeah.
Well, congrats on being smoke-free.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Tina,
Feels
go
great.
ahead. I know you well enough that you're chomping on a question. So go ahead. Thanks for sharing that with us, Joe. And I'm so sorry for your loss, man. I
Thank
can't
you.
even imagine. I can't even
Yeah. Well, it
imagine.
brought me here. So,
Yeah.
So, Joe, I understand you're halfway through HMI's curriculum, correct?
yes.
Hmm. Okay. So, my question is, up to this point, um, what has been that one like wow aha moment that really kind of rattled you, like on the inside?
Is the question framed related to my HMI studies?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I I would say unreservedly, I think it's the passion. So it's the humanity the of the instructors.
Hmm.
And I'm not gonna, highlight or paint a picture that, HMI is some bastion um of perfect people. But I will say that it seems to me to a person, to a person, there is a deep individual desire on at least every instructor that I've had the pleasure of interacting with. Um, they really believe in their craft, and they really appear to be motivated by a genuine desire to help others. So I guess I
Hmm.
would say it's this realization that service to others is
Mhm.
just everywhere you look and everywhere you feel at HMI.
Hmm. And how does that affect you? Like, what is it that it did to
Yeah,
you? Did it,
yeah,
inspiration?
yeah.
What?
Yeah. Well, it made me realize that I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Mm.
So it sort of
Mm.
makes me realize that the people that I'm now surrounded with perhaps are the people that I need to have the reality that I'm moving towards reflected back towards me. So I
Hmm.
would say whether they're, and I'm quite certain that they're not conscious of it, but I would say collectively, as I look around or as I feel my way around HMI, I feel like I'm in a wonderful place with, positively motivated people who genuinely want the best outcome possible for the students. And so that has perhaps supercharged my own resolve or my own passion.
Mm.
And it's an interesting question that you asked, because the more I think about that, the more it's been an endless well of aha moments. It really has.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Hmm.
am constantly talking to my peers um, about the power. It's really
Hmm.
the power behind the information,
Hmm.
the academic information that then is enabling us as students, seeing pro bono clients, enabling us to make transformative changes in people's lives. So.
Hmm. You want to go, Don, or do you want me to keep going?
Well, I just wanted to make a brief comment on the service of others.
Absolutely.
I say kind of my living creed is to be of love and service to others. And I learned that in a 12-step program, and then it's just carried out into every area of my life. And I just knew instantly I was at the right place at the right time when Tina and I were the last class to go in person. We were the first
Mhm.
class to do our 501 indoctrination on Zoom. Like you talk about a
Oh,
pivot from 25 years of cybersecurity, like
yeah.
HMI, how many years were it? Like
It was
45,
52.
52 years that they were in
Hmm.
existence with brick and mortar classrooms.
Yeah.
And then what feel
Seamless.
like, and Tina is kind of my fact checker in my life, like most of the amazing women in my life. They like to make sure that I'm absolutely saying the absolute truth. But I
Mhm.
swear to God, it felt like to me that HMI, George and the entire staff pivoted overnight.
Seamlessly.
Like I don't
Seamlessly.
even think we missed one class and they were
We
like
did not.
on
Wow.
Zoom.
We did
Remarkable.
not miss one class. It
Yeah.
was so
Okay.
seamless.
Remarkable.
Yeah. So impressive. So and that's what I've experienced. That's what we have experienced is that outpouring of it's a family business. Let's be honest, right?
Mhm.
It's Kappas, Kappas, Kappas. Like there's a lot of Kappases involved here, and
Yeah.
it really speaks to first George's dad's vision, Dr. John Kappas, and now George has carried that vision forward into the 21st century, and I'm so impressed by it and the heart of all the instructors. I
Mhm.
haven't met one that doesn't have that exuding feeling of being
Mhm.
helpful to others and really wanting to make an impactful difference. What do you think, Tina?
Yeah.
Little memory
Absolutely.
road here?
Absolutely. It's a place where, interestingly enough, you find out who you really are.
Mm,
Mm.
Um, it
That's
inspires
interesting.
you to be the person that you know that you are on the inside, and it allows space for you to become that person. Um, so
You know,
speaking of, mhm,
yeah, sorry.
go
I
ahead.
just want to say that is, you couldn't, I think you said best perhaps what I was trying to get at. But that's what I meant when I said it feels to me as though, again, no one's conscious of this perhaps, but
Mhm.
my experience is that the instructors at HMI, and this also relates to my peers as well, I feel like everyone is walking around reflecting the core values and the core attributes that I'm striving for. And so there's a deep sense of familiarity that comes
Mhm.
with that. And I really, really enjoyed the way you characterize that, Tina. That was really very nicely said.
Well, thank you. What do you
Yeah.
think that you've learned most about you? Like, what was the one moment where you kind of went, "Oh, that makes complete sense now,"
Yeah.
if you want
Yeah.
to
Oh, wow.
share?
Question. Yeah, that's a great question. Probably validation of something that I've always known about myself. And so, for better or for worse, I do feel like I have, perhaps not in the corporate decisions that I've made, but certainly in my personal life, I do feel as though I've lived a life of service to others. Um, but I guess, being introduced to the HMI world, it just, you know what? It valid. Okay. I have said to my family and friends that my decision to study hypnotherapy, and in particular, my decision to enroll at HMI, is very likely the first heart-based decision the first heart-based, certainly career decision that I've made in my life. And almost as soon as I made that decision, I started receiving blessings and validation and, the mirror just being held up held up everywhere I looked that I had, in fact, made the right decision. So, I mean, it sounds supernatural. I know it must sound supernatural, but this has been my experience.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's
I think,
typically everybody's experience.
yeah, I was just going to say, I think
That's interesting. That's
most of
interesting.
us have that experience, right? There are the outliers who maybe don't connect to the material and kind of fizzle out. But most people that are driven by that servitude of others purpose, right? Um, it's almost like HMI finds you.
Mhm.
That may be, in fact, what happened. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm open.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so you're in 301. So we'll break it down for people the way that the Tina alluded to. You're halfway through. So technically, at
Mhm.
the end of 301, when you get to 501, even there is a 401, but 401 is all the videos. You are now getting ready. And oh, by the way, Tina, so they have this whole PSR thing, practical skills review, and so
Mhm.
Joe, who works with Joe Burns as his
Okay.
mentor, just
Mhm.
took and passed with flying colors his PSR. You have to
Well,
actually
Yeah.
pass a test. It doesn't
Super psyched.
go to
Super
your
psyched.
GPA, but yeah. So
congratulations.
that is
Thank
the
you. Thank
trigger to be able to receive pro bono clients.
Yeah,
Very nice.
looking forward. Can I just say how weird that experience? Again, I say weird. Maybe I mean
You mean the
apropos.
actual presenting of the 10 elements?
Well, that and the experience leading up to it.
Okay.
So everyone's busy, right? And so that's just a given. So with that understanding, it had been some time since I had talked with Joe. Maybe it had been 4 weeks, and I get a phone call, 10 o'clock. Of course, it was 7 o'clock his time. And hey, Joe, would you like to do your PSR tomorrow? And I said, sure. And so that was my first mentor meeting, and it was over in 30 minutes. So yeah, it was just really remarkable.
Hmm.
That is
Yeah,
the new
I mean,
way of the
I mean, I will. Yeah, I will say. I mean, I that this was not by any. There was no intention there other than to describe what for me was a very healthy um, process. I'm led to understand that HMI's mentor student PSR process allows for there to be as many as 3 interactions, 3 proficiency skills
sessions.
review
Yeah.
related sessions, and that it's more or less up to the student to raise their hand and say when they're ready. And so I think what I was trying to convey in my characterization of my interaction with Joe was that I think that Joe felt that I was ready. And so I feel like that's why it played out the way that it did. And it was a wonderful experience. Yeah.
Mentors are very special.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
seem to have a sixth sense about them, especially
Yeah.
the really good ones.
Yeah. And I will tell you that, I mean, I can't count on one hand how many HMI professors I would like to be my mentor.
Hmm.
That's in addition to the one that I already have. So, I
Hmm.
mean, I'm really serious about that. And that speaks to the quality, the quality of the people there.
Yeah.
They
Agreed.
are the highest fiber beings. I think they
Yeah.
are just really great people in general.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one you can say anything bad about. They're just really wonderful, caring, and giving people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can't what's the term? You can replicate that, but I mean, but only if it comes naturally to a person. I guess what I'm trying to say is you can't like force that, right?
You
That's
can't
just
teach somebody how to be a
no,
caring,
no,
yeah,
no,
kind,
Hmm.
no.
passionate. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to see so much of it at HMI is just really, it's kind of remarkable. I mean,
It
it's
is.
almost kind of
Certainly.
supernatural
Well,
in and of
like attracts like sometimes,
Mhm.
Okay, there you
um,
go.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, so you were saying, Don, 301.
Yeah, so 301, do you know when your 50, do you have a date for your 501 indoctrination yet?
So I don't,
Okay.
although perhaps if you told me if there is something on my personal dashboard that might alert me to that,
I would not
like
know that. That would be your
like,
personal cyber secured platform.
okay, okay.
I do not have
No,
access
I
to
meant
that.
like, I guess what I meant was, were you familiar with the way in which HMI communicates that
Yeah, so
to
where are you in
recipients?
301? How
That was
many?
my question.
3014. I'm 3014.
Okay, and you've
Okay.
only done one, two, three, and now you're in four? Because they
Right.
stagger the starts. Like sometimes you'll start like some a certain group from 201 will start
Three
halfway through or a quarter of the way through. They stagger so that there's a
Okay.
mixture of early, middle, and people that are a little bit
More
more
knowledge. Yeah.
comfortable to kind of work. That's the other thing that was really attractive about HMI is this community that gets built of supporting each other. The 501s helping the 201s when they first are like little newborn babies. Like I had a lady today in a practicum. It was her first practicum ever, and I felt so honored to be her
Oh,
first practicum, and she was just like so overwhelmed. And so like it was great
that's
though.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Now, does your 501 indoctrination have any relevance or connection to your completion rate of work practicums, electives, etc.?
Well, as Tina pointed out, you're halfway through, so you should be on track with all the requirements, all the case
Yeah,
conferences, all the practicum workshops, like
the 401.
I've already satisfied all my WPs, and I think
overachieve.
I'm going to wind up getting like triple time, I suspect, and all the extra stuff that I can do.
All
So
right.
I'm very blessed to be in a position to be able to do that. Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see, I've got my awards on the table there. Tina's got her most recent award over her right shoulder. That was for the
Nice.
AOS program. I haven't officially had a graduation for my AOS class because we're a little behind in graduations, and I'm not even worried about more awards. But are you
Yeah.
aiming for any, if
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
all of the awards, Joe?
Yeah. I mean, if I have, if I meet my own expectations, I'll graduate with, the highest honors. So whatever that's called, director's award, clinical
Well, so
award.
honors is one thing,
Academic.
and then there's the director's award. This is what Tina and I both won. We both
Yeah.
graduated top five of our class. So, director's award, clinical achievement award, which is the one I'm
Yeah.
most proud of, and then the academic achievement award. So that
Yeah.
would be the high honors of the
Yeah.
honors. So if you have an X amount of GPA through the
Yeah.
whole year program, you get to graduate, and it says on your diploma with honors, but then
Yeah.
the plaques are a whole nother thing. So,
What do you mean
cool.
they're a whole other thing, if I could ask? What
It's
do you
a
mean
whole
by that?
nother level of achievement and requirements.
Acknowledgement? Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my goal would be to
Okay. Go
graduate
ahead. Okay. We got to
the
do a little
highest
show and
honors.
tell. Yeah. Here we
Sorry.
go. Here you
Have
go.
I awakened the beast? Have I awakened the beast? Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
You
Tina?
know, yeah. Oh, Tina's got them all.
Yeah. Tina,
Yeah,
Tina
nailed it.
has plus one.
I do.
Okay.
I have
That's her
plus one.
plus one right there. I don't have the plus one. She had to one up me, Joe. I love this
Yeah.
woman, but
Well,
dang,
yeah.
she's
What are you gonna
competitive as
do?
hell.
Mhm.
We both are. All
Yeah,
right,
no.
so here's where I'm going with this. So you're about to make, well, you're not really, because what is there, like 12? How many modules in 301? I forget.
There
But
are actually, I think there might be 28 or
what?
24.
No.
I think there are. I think
What?
I'm pretty certain I saw 20 some. In fact, I can
Wow.
confirm it
Okay.
right now.
Okay. So
Yeah.
not necessarily halfway through, but have been introduced to several different modalities. So I'm curious
Oh,
in the spirit of our podcast, which is talking about the power of the subconscious and hypnosis, and what's speaking to you so far out of what you're learning. Like, do you have a modality that's spoken to you? Is there
yeah. Oh gosh, there's so
what
many. So many, so
I
many.
know. But Joe,
Great
come on.
question,
You
but
got to focus,
it's
bro.
I have to pick one. So if I had to pick one, it would be past life regression.
Really?
But yeah, NLP, inner child
Okay.
work, a close second. EMP is some good stuff as well, but
Hmm.
NLP, I'm really liking that, and very likely going to take Joe Tabanella's course on NLP. Um, yeah, but past life regression, I think a lot of my curiosity and natural maybe proclivity or affinity for that is comes from maybe how well read I am or what I've been exposed to, what I was
Hmm.
exposed to prior to coming to HMI. And
Right.
that is a lot of the Dolores Cannon, QHHT work, past life regression, and then Michael Newton's life between lives, LBL, regression therapy, otherwise known as spiritual regression. Um, Michael, I think it's Michael Newton is the last name. Very prolific hypnotherapist. I think he has documented 7,000 life between lives cases where he's not only leading the person back into a previous lifetime, but then through using that lifetime to go through the death scene into their life between lives,
Mm. Hmm.
which is
Interesting.
a fascinating topic for me because what you're learning about is your higher self.
Right.
You're learning about who you are in energy form without this physical vessel. So this is what I feel probably is responsible for so much of my natural curiosity around the past life regression piece.
And have you had the introductory class that I can't remember if it's part of 201 or 301, but I know that
Uh,
there is an
Past life
introductory.
regression?
Yeah.
Yes, I have. That's in
Okay.
201. There
Got it.
might be another one in 301, but there
No,
was
no.
definitely one.
I just was trying to use my memory to see it in the list, and I do remember it's 201. So
Mhm.
Mhm,
there is a certification for that as well. So you
mhm,
can say you're a certified past life
mhm.
regression hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
Recommend that if that's what's speaking to you, follow it. And yeah, both Tina and I are NLP um,
Mm,
Mhm.
certified,
nice.
and we are also imagery masters.
Oh, another one of my favorite. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario in which I won't leverage, imagery, unless perhaps I'm with someone who I know simply has no ability to visualize.
Nope, you'll use it. You'll absolutely use it.
Mhm.
Even when you think
Yeah,
you're not, you're going
Yeah,
yeah,
to.
yeah. No, that
Um,
makes sense, right? I think
she's
it's
she just
something that is so close to us, to human. I think it's so close to us as human.
mm,
The inclination to describe, the our inclination for the ability to describe and to describe for others. I think I think human beings have a unique ability for that, have a unique capacity for that. And so not surprised to hear you say that I'll find myself, pulling that out of my bag one day, even, when I
Mhm.
least expect
Yeah, it's
it.
yeah. That alone is probably the number one used modality.
Yeah. Mhm.
100%. Yeah.
And why not, right? I mean, I think we could all agree that certainly this is what I'm learning in HMI, and I would imagine one or both of you would, be able to speak more fully to this. But the fact that we know that the brain works through imagery, right? I mean,
Hmm.
images are the brain's
Hmm.
uh, foundational language,
Absolutely. Not
right?
numbers, according to
Right.
Kappas.
Hmm.
And you've also
Yeah.
taken the introduction to NLP, right? That's in 201
That's,
as well. And
yeah.
so
That's what really
you
ignited my
probably
interest.
remember that NLP's version of that is the IR, the internal representation, which is
Yeah.
the pictures and images that we create based on
Yeah.
our experiences. So, even NLP's using imagery.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's funny because Cheryl will also use NLP. So it kind of bounces back and forth. So it's really good to
Yeah,
have um,
Both.
both modalities to pull
Yeah.
from.
Agreed.
yeah, yeah.
And you absolutely benefit from that.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Well, would this be would this be what would it be appropriate for me to maybe take a few minutes and just share a 5 minute share of my first pro bono client?
Sure.
Go for
Five
it.
minutes.
Sure.
I'm working outside. Someone's walking up to me. I recognize him as a neighbor. I don't know his name. He doesn't know mine. He just walks up and says hello. And I paused my work and he asked me, we obviously introduced ourselves and learned that we were neighbors and learned where we lived and all that. And then he asked what I was doing these days. And I said that I had a recent pivot towards hypnotherapy. And turns out he's a 63-year-old male who, at the age of 13, and a teenager in England, was sent to boarding school by his parents at the age of 13, and very promptly developed a nail biting compulsion that has been with him for 50 years.
Hmm.
And so to hear him speak, not one day has passed where he has not bitten his nails to the nubs. And then went on to describe all sorts of therapies that he'd tried. None of them were successful, including aversion therapy, where he poured some toxic chemical on his nails. I can't imagine doing that, but that's what he did. So I asked, if I asked him, if I asked you, are you, why are you ready? Like, why do you think you'll be successful this time? He said, I cannot do this. Like, I don't want a life. I don't want a life in which I am not able to exert control over this unwanted behavior. So we set an appointment for the following Monday. He arrives at my home, my office, and we sat down and I walked him through the intake process. And then I learned he was a 78% physical suggestible and went immediately into the hypnosis therapy. And on the other end of it, he was, just amazed at how relaxed he had become. Like, he said, like, he had to wake up his throat and his cheek, and like he was just marveling at how deeply relaxed he had been able to achieve this relaxed state. And so we talked a bit about, I don't like to call it homework, but I sent him home with some instructions. I'm pulling the load here with the 88 to 90%. You're responsible for the 10%. And that was breath work, a few minutes of breath work each night before sleep, and then select from this list of 20 suggestible statements that I sent him home with, select 2 or 3 that resonate with you and repeat them to yourself before sleep, making certain that you don't engage the cognitive mind for any reason after you have done the breath work and have done the affirmations. Just go right to sleep. So he did that. And 2 days later, he calls me to say that he had just experienced the first 3 days of his life since the age of 13, where he had not bitten his nails. And he was just so profoundly grateful for that. And I reminded him, that I was really just the conduit through which, he was able to re-exert his control. And so he's been back once for a follow-up session. And I'm actually going to see him tomorrow at a public event. And I'll probably make a recommendation that he come back for a tune-up session in a month or so. But grateful that the universe gave me this client. In no scenario do I think there was any, coincidence to the fact that this client was brought to me and that this was my first client, and then to have such an amazing outcome. What that does for me professionally, is almost indescribable. And what it does for him, to hear him speak, there are no words for his gratitude. So yeah, I'm feeling a little bit like a Superman at the moment, and that feels great.
It feels amazing,
So
right?
I'm encouraged if you have had these moments, and so this must be something that I would imagine you both could resonate with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the surprise of doing
Mhm.
your purpose, your life purpose, is that
Mhm.
there is something you are getting out of it. And it's as simple as joy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this
Mhm.
is what happens when one aligns themselves with their life purpose. So,
Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Living your destiny.
yeah. Yeah. So thanks for letting me share that tonight. I appreciate it.
Well, it's
That's
great
powerful.
success.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
I've
Absolutely.
actually worked with some nail biters who turned into pickers, and they're not as easy as one and done. So congratulations on
Mm. No, no, no,
on
no.
that.
He's got to come back. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when this woman shows up and she's got pretty much all of her fingers bandaged because the pickers, they not the biters, but the pickers, they'll pick till it bleeds because there's that
Oh,
rush of endorphins that's released.
yeah. Yes,
And
yes,
she's like,
yes.
"So how are you doing?" And she holds her hands up and she's literally got almost every finger bandaged. And then the next week she comes back and she's got one. And I'm just
Oh,
like,
nice.
you know and, and like when I'm done, like I really get in touch with that purpose that we're talking about, where like I get to live a life I love helping others,
Hmm.
and it's so emotionally powerful to be of that level of service, it's
It's a
just
gift.
incredible.
It's a
Yeah.
gift. And what I mean by that is it's a gift the universe gives us. And we
Hmm.
have a responsibility to own it and to show up and to be present. And so that's my commitment to me, right? Um, my partner was actually a bit older than me, 23 years, and he would always say, you'll have a life after me. And
Mm,
not only did I not like to hear that, I didn't really ever really allow myself to fully be with what that could mean. And
right.
so now I'm realizing what that means. And so just feeling very blessed.
It is the surprise of HMI.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
really is.
I'm
yeah.
so glad you and HMI found each other. I think you're
Mm.
gonna, you're already on the path to changing lives, with including your own. That the
Hmm.
thing that we kind of Tina talked about it earlier, right? You lose track of like, it's really my transformation that then allows me, right? We're talking about stepping into your greatness, stepping into your higher self, living as your most authentic, energetic self, right?
Hmm.
Versus this meat suit that we're all wearing right now.
Hmm.
It's just,
It's remarkable. I mean,
it
they're
really
really me speechless. If my family or friends heard me say me and speechless in the same phrase,
We know a little
they
bit
would.
about that, huh?
HMI has an amazing effect on people. I think it brings out the best in people.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And it definitely shows you where your gifts are, and it gives you comfort knowing you're not alone.
Hmm.
Especially if you find yourself directed to HMI,
Hmm.
um, after you've had some type of event. Most people find themselves finding HMI after an event. So it's quite profound how it works out.
Yeah, and I find that there must, again, I don't believe in coincidences, so everything is synchronous. So when you say something like most people find HMI after, again, I'm paraphrasing, but I think you meant, some event, some significant
Hmm.
event. I don't think that there's any coincidence to that, right?
Mm.
I
No,
think it's all
there is no
synchronicity.
coincidence.
Yeah.
You're there for a reason. Hmm.
Mhm. Yeah.
So Tina, what was your event? Since we're skipping through memory lane here. Thanks, Joe.
Uh,
Appreciate you. I
sure.
remind us, our listeners and me, like what was what okay, let's just call it like what you just said. What was your event? I know mine. I'm
Um,
ready to go. What was yours?
my event was multiple deaths, um, a divorce after 20 years,
Mm.
and a life of not really fitting in.
Mm.
Mm.
So that was the event. But the death itself, the grief, is what really did it.
Yeah.
Looking for relief of grief, found a hypnotherapist here, who is a graduate of HMI.
Mm.
Mhm.
Mm.
Ava Evans is her name. And, it was so profound to be able to go from struggling to not think about all the loss, pick which one, but thinking about it collectively is so much, to one day walking around going, oh, I'm not thinking about that anymore.
Mm.
I need to do this. I need to do this because if I could stop somebody from carrying around the amount of baggage that I was carrying,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be a part of that. I
Beautiful.
needed to be a part of that. So that was the event. It was a long event, but it was an event.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, I mean, thank you for sharing. That's quite a lot for
Mm-hmm.
any one person to experience. And would you say that you've, I mean, this almost seems like a ridiculous question to ask, but I'll just say it for the benefit of those who may watch this podcast, that because you're living more in alignment with your true self, that 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 it is that is allowing you, I mean, so many things, shine, step into your greatness, be your authentic self, but also um, maybe do you find that you feel like you are more aligned?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's that
Um,
alignment, I think, means
it's
everything.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. You're living, um, your life is more joyful when you're doing things you love.
Hmm.
So find the thing
Yeah.
you love and do it. And if you can't
Right.
only do that, because you might have to do other things to put, food on the table, well, then, you work your job, whatever that is. But to make that easier, that's what you have to do what you love. And that's fine. That's
Mm.
fine.
Hmm.
So,
Beautiful.
So having bear witness to your transformation from the outside in, right? So as an observer, you said that you have this not fitting in feeling, and boy, that goes away at HMI, doesn't it?
oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely.
I know this is like one long promo. I'm like, I'm gonna have to send HMI the
The link.
recording so they can edit it and use it if they want.
Yeah.
We kind of gush on HMI regardless of an HMI student being in the room or not. As you
Mhm.
can imagine, how much transformation it's allowed for us in our personal lives, and then cascading that out, that ripple effect of throwing that pebble into the middle of a still pond. The waves just keep going, because you touch one person's life who then goes, so that multiplies, their lives multiply. It's
Hmm.
just such an incredible thing to be part of.
Well, it's a chain reaction especially when
Yeah.
it comes to your clients. Like, the amount of, the highest compliment is when there's a referral.
Hmm.
That's really the highest compliment.
Yeah.
Of
And that's, you can drum up new business all day long, but if those people are so affected by you that they then refer you, that's a pretty
Yeah.
great compliment.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine there being a higher compliment, to be honest.
That's pretty much
Hmm.
it. Or the physical the 10-fingered band-aids down to one or none the
Oh
next.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right up there too. But yeah, for
Hmm.
for that those individuals to then say to somebody else, like,
Yeah.
hey, oh, by the way, I gave your name to so and so. Whether that person's gonna call or not is like a whole
Right.
nother, because they've got their whole bag of
Stuff.
challenges, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Whether they have some weird Hollywood version of hypnosis in their mind or the stage version, and they think it's a joke or mind control. And while, oh, that's good for you, I'm glad you're changed, but that's a little,
Mm.
we're still
Not
dealing
for
with
me.
that. So I feel like we're making progress though, in the public.
1% at
I
a
think we're
time.
doing good work collectively, and it's
1%
not
of the
just
time.
us. There's a plethora of other ways to learn hypnotherapy. We don't corner the market, but we certainly have our share of it.
We may not
Well,
corner the market, but
I would say we almost are I would almost say we almost are the market. I mean, if we can say that the founder of the college to which we all attend or have graduated is accredited with coining the term hypnotherapist, that's a
It's
pretty
pretty significant. Yeah.
pretty significant
I was trying to
statement.
be humble. All right.
Yeah, not too humble.
I was taught in my security career. It's just it's still trippy to me that we're both in
I
security,
know.
even though
We
we're on
probably have
different sides
more to
of
learn
it.
about. Yeah.
I was taught early on when I didn't had any idea how to sell security and tell a story, right? Because stories sell.
Mhm.
But I was taught to never talk down about somebody else's company or delivery or lack of but to
Yeah.
always talk well about what we can do. And so that's the high road I choose to take with HMI. And we're not exclusive. I follow other people in the hypnotic world, but
Mhm.
nobody compares to Dr. John Kappas and the Kappas family, in my opinion. You're absolutely right. Yeah, there you go.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody says John Kappas, but I got to give it to George.
George, absolutely.
He has
Next
steered this
level.
ship into very rough water during COVID and came out so victorious.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
victorious.
and
Thriving.
it literally
Thriving.
thriving. And
Doubling,
we
tripling,
watched it.
quadrupling their attendance, and
Their pro
it's
bonos were
incredible.
out of this world.
Mm.
And that really is that really says something about him.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I do
Our
think
fearless
George is,
leader. Yeah,
yes, yes, George is pretty fabulous. So,
he's pretty awesome. That's right. Yeah. Uh, all right. Well, where do we go from here? We got a little time left. What do you want to ask Joe, Tina? What's on your mind?
um, hmm,
Hmm.
hmm,
The Grand
um,
Inquisition.
what was that?
It's the Grand Inquisition.
Yeah.
um, let's see. What do you think? What has been the biggest challenge for you? What do you think your biggest challenge is when it comes to the modalities at HMI and past HMI? Like, what are your concerns?
Okay. Um, Actually, my concerns have to do, if perhaps unsurprisingly, have more to do with me than anybody
Hmm.
else.
Hmm.
Um, but really, it was about this imposter syndrome
Hmm.
Hmm.
um, that I thought I was immune from. Uh, Turns out I wasn't. But I've done some visualization. That was a commitment I've made to myself. As soon as I started to realize that this was going to be something that I felt like I needed to pay attention to, I started to devote time each day to meditation and visualizing myself stepping into this role
Hmm.
of, I mean, we can be humble and say, at the same time that we are in service to others, and we are in many ways performing in a healing therapeutic way. Of course, it's always in close collaboration with the client, and we all know that if the client isn't 100% committed to the process or to the outcome, it simply won't happen. But I realized that I needed to do some work on me. And for me, I've always known that visualization works. And
Hmm.
so spending time doing breath work, and then, once I'm in a more open and relaxed state, um, doing my visualizations and just recognizing that my intent is and then add on top of intent, so the intent to be in service to others, and then on top of that, this just deeply, deeply high quality academic and clinical practical training that I'm getting from HMI, that there's just no reason in the world why I should feel as though this isn't me. I mean, I know it's me, and I suppose to any extent that I am being impacted by the imposter syndrome, that's my critical self that I need to find a way to quiet.
Hmm.
And so for me, it would be that. It would be the recognition that I needed, that there was work to do on myself, and so doing that work would allow me to be more present and therefore more effective in my delivery of hypnotherapy services to my clients.
HMI definitely has the ability to tap right into what we fear and find a way to make it um, workable.
Mm-hmm.
You have no
Yeah,
choice
yeah,
but confront your own stuff as you go through HMI. I don't know how many times
right.
John and I said it to each other. You know, how do you how do you have conversations with people outside of HMI when you kind of work in this model? And
Yeah.
Right.
it's very, very challenging sometimes because you are always upfront and honest with yourself, working on yourself. And if somebody is not, you can very easily and readily see it.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say that um, that you're right. Essentially, said another way, is the commitment that I've made to myself to work on myself, that I believe sharpens my recognition of those who I'm speaking with, or who may have a passing interest in this, but who haven't yet quite committed to the process. It certainly has allowed me to recognize those people more readily. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you say why past lives was so important to you?
So I didn't. And well, I said it insofar as I acknowledge that I've spent a lifetime researching many different esoteric and metaphysical topics. Neville Goddard is,
Mm-hmm.
like a demigod to me. The information this man, shared, and I just think it's just so powerful. I think Dolores Cannon has done some good work. Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess insofar as past lives, I my personal belief, insofar as it's relevant to this conversation, is that we are, each of us, eternal divine beings having a temporary physical experience. And that means, in short, that I believe in reincarnation, which means that I'm convinced that I've led many lives, and I
Mm-hmm.
have a natural curiosity about those lives. I want to know,
Mm.
those. I'd like to know about the experiences that I've had, and I think that I'm certainly not the only. I'm certainly not the only person with a curiosity about what experiences they may have had, that not only that they have had in previous lives, but also I'm of the belief that each life that we live forms an imprint on our eternal soul, and it's that eternal soul and the imprints of those previous lives that I believe we bring in to our current incarnation, and then, to the extent that the veil of forgetfulness allows us to, we have access to that information, perhaps in the form of intuition, um,
Mm-hmm.
or channeled learnings. That's perhaps us, channeling our higher self. And so, yeah, I think it comes from a deep desire to know the magnificence of self. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
mean the magnificence of self in this incarnation. I mean my eternal magnificent self,
Your soul.
my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Agreed.
And all of its glory,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
um, and to further expand the understanding that I have is that, you know, contrast is everything. You know, you can't possibly know what love is if you don't know what it's, if you don't know its opposite,
Hmm.
or you can't possibly know that you might be more aligned to light, and to the lightness of being, if perhaps you had the opportunity to play with the dark. We call that shadow work, perhaps in this life or even in a previous life. So yeah, it's I'm in love with the idea of each of us being eternal spirits having a temporary physical experience. And I believe that, you know, when this meat suit, as you call it, done, when this meat suit um, gets tired and, you know, decides that it's done, you know, I'm going to slip into my higher form, and I'll probably rest for a bit because these incarnations are not always easy. But I'm probably going to reincarnate again. Yeah, this is my belief. Does any of this resonate, or by all means, please share your own personal view of either this topic or uh, anything that's related.
No, go ahead, Don.
Really?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Where-
it resonates with me very much so. I had this experience, and for the life of me, my ex-wife, who was part of this part of my life when we were living in Ashland, Oregon, where our second daughter was born, and I went and saw this couple that kind of worked together and did some sort of past lifey thing. We don't know. We neither one of us can remember exactly what it was, but you know, they told, I mean, it was had to be some sort of past life thing. What I got out of that experience was tapping into the fact that I'm a healer, but then also more importantly that my beliefs are aligned with you to some degree. But I believe that at some point you ascend and you're
Mhm.
done coming back,
Okay, beautiful.
Hmm.
to say it
And
easily. Yeah.
yeah,
Which
any thoughts about what it is that um, what threshold? Any thoughts about the threshold that one would reach in
Believe it
order
or not,
to
at that
not?
time in my life, I thought it'd become very clear to me that this was my last trip,
Mm,
but it's
very
not
interesting.
anymore. It's going to
Okay,
HMI.
okay,
And that wasn't
interesting.
ego based. That was a spiritual experience that I
Hmm.
had. It wasn't about like, oh, you know, I'm
Hmm.
done. Like I've ascended. I'm a walking angel on the planet by any means.
Okay.
But yeah, it was really both Tina and I went through the AOS program, which is HMI's second year, and that really like that really kicked up the dirt personally. Like I got in touch with, and I'm aware of these traumas that I had in my childhood. You know, they're just kind of there, right? And there's
Hmm.
been a lot of work to forgive my father and to let go of that. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you allow it to be okay. It's just that you release that person. So my dad was able to pass and feel released from the bondage of me, growing up
Yeah.
hating him because of the
Mhm.
the hitting. But then there
Yeah.
was other abuse that was involved with a boy when I was like 12, and so those came right up and smacked me in the face in AOS because, we get into all these other modalities, a little more, I hate to say the word traditional, but a little bit more traditional. So that really made it clear to me there's still work to be done here. And
Interesting.
I'm okay
So
with
that
that.
is
I like the
so
work.
so just for the record, what Tina and I are hearing you say is it was your exploration of HMI's AOS, which as we know is the second year of this program, that confirmed that this is not your last incarnation.
I mean, it was clear
There's
during
more
the
work.
the 720, as it's referred to now, the 720 program, the first year,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
became abundantly clear in that, but there was
Okay.
just something different about, there was a different light that was cast
Yeah. It's a lens.
through a
Different
through a
lens.
clinical lens that was like, oh wow, huh.
Okay. Okay.
AOS fills the cracks that might
Okay.
be there in
Yeah.
720.
You
Okay.
would love it.
Good to know.
I'll just say
I'm
that.
I'm headed into it, so
Yeah,
so I'm
you would
looking forward to
absolutely love it. And you've got PhDs that are instructing you. And some of those PhDs are actually previous graduates from HMI's
it.
720
Okay.
Yeah,
hypnotherapy program. So that's
they're
another
fabulous.
cool little bonus, is
Great.
you're talking to someone who's evolved past, just hypnotherapy
Beautiful.
as their
Yeah.
modality into a, you know, CBT or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It is a very robust
it's
um
a good way of saying it. Yeah. Well,
class.
Really? So
Series.
there's
It is.
so there's not going to be any skating. There's no skating involved.
There's
This is
there's
serious
no,
academic.
no,
yeah,
there's
Yeah.
moments where you might be able to breathe easier than others, but
Okay.
no, they're all
there is
pivotal.
a
Because I'm not
freight
looking for
train
that. That's
coming
good.
at you in
Okay.
AOS, and
Yeah.
her name is Victoria Stevens, and she
Oh my.
is
Wow.
brilliant.
So
And if
Mhm.
you plan on taking it, um, that woman, I don't know where she houses all her information, but she
that
is
stream of
brilliant.
consciousness she has is next level. I don't think
It,
I've ever
it
met anyone that can
Okay.
just like go,
she just goes
just,
and
I'm going to step
goes.
right in front of her. I'm going to step right in front of her.
yeah, well,
And
Well,
you
good
could
luck.
try.
direct that toward her.
She's pretty amazing. All the instructors in the AOS program are fabulous. And the amount of information that you're getting that you can then apply to your clients is
Mhm.
invaluable.
Yeah.
Like you'll be
Beautiful.
able to spot things that in 720 you didn't get. Um, and you're seeing it, in a distance. So you are getting valuable information that you need to be um, a knowledgeable hypnotherapist that
Yeah.
has some clinical information, which
Hmm.
is
Mhm.
super important, especially since we are definitely not stage hypnotists.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there is a big difference between us, so it is important, and if you are serious, then you should do it
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
someday. George
And
is
you
just
you
gonna,
started off earlier talking about you found and you called them a clinical hypnotherapist.
That's right.
So unless
Yeah.
you take the AOS year, you earn that second C in the title, which is clinical,
Mhm,
which
Yeah.
mhm.
I
I
wouldn't be
take
happy
great pride
otherwise.
in sharing with the prospects and clients that I work with, right? That I'm clinically trained. I'm a clinical
Yeah.
hypnotherapist,
Yeah.
which to
I
me
wouldn't
just
be.
is next level, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't be satisfied otherwise. So yeah.
Yeah.
There's no question
Well, you
that
will
I'm
enjoy it.
Yes, you will. All
Especially
right.
the
Well, it's getting to be
transpersonal
that
part.
time. Tina, do you want to tell us really quickly? Like, are you done? Like evolving? Like, is this the last trip on the planet for you? Like, where are you?
Uh, I
Oh
think this
yeah.
is my last trip. I've been here for a while, so
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm finishing up some things. I'll be here for a while, but I don't know. Um, yeah, it's still up in
Well,
the air.
the colloquial they say
Hmm.
Hmm.
that you don't incarnate to Earth unless you are of a certain sustenance, a certain strength. So
Hmm.
let's at least give ourselves that we chose this, that we are the
Hmm.
architect, we are the
Hmm.
architect of our
Yes.
lives,
Yes.
and that
Absolutely.
we accept all responsibility for the actions that we take and the dreams that we have. And yeah, I can't. I wouldn't want to be anywhere other than where I am right now. So
Hmm.
You are exactly in the right place at the right time with the right people. So thank you so much for making time on Joe's on the East Coast, so it's a little later for him. Just so grateful for your time and participation today. Really enjoyed speaking with you. Tina, you want to close us out? Oh, by the way, I'll put Joe gave me a rather long list of contact information for him. I'll put in a couple of vital ways that you
Yeah,
can get in touch with Joe if you want to do so, but we'll put that in the show notes.
appreciate that.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to have you here. And our subconscious speaks. The question is, are you listening?
Thank you both.
Thanks, everybody. All right.
Take